Welcome, brave souls, to Fear File Chronicles, your one-way ticket to spine-chilling stories and terrifying tales. Tonight, we'll be diving into the darkest corners of the human mind with the story, Rickets, Part 2, penned by the twisted mind of Locked 334. Together, we'll explore the unexplained and face our deepest fears. But before we begin, if you enjoy trembling in terror, be sure to hit that like button, share this video with your fellow fear fanatics, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click the bell notification so you never miss an eerie episode. Your support truly means the world to us, so feel free to leave a comment below to join the Fear File Chronicles community. Now, without further ado, let's unravel the mysteries of the unknown together as we delve into tonight's fear-inducing story, Rickets, Part 2. Dim the lights and prepare yourself for a chilling journey into the Fear File Chronicles. At this point in my story, I would like to say that the nursing staff was amazing. Somehow, they were able to help me out of my bed, change my sheets, and replace my gown between my quivering, nervous twitches and jerking sobs. I can honestly say I have not cried like that since I was a child. I felt like someone had reached down deep into places I had buried under copious amounts of alcohol and dragged from the depths of despair that only a few knew of. I wanted to die. The first 2 nights afterward, I attempted to cut into my wrists with parts of the hospital bed. I did not want to exist in this pain anymore. I was quickly put on suicide watch, and it took a week for me to calm down to a point where the psychiatrist on staff felt I was safe to be in a regular room. I was still monitored closely, but I did not need to be completely restrained. Despite the original request to limit my medication, the staff of the hospital petitioned the court to allow me to have antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication. This cocktail allowed me to remain calm during the day, despite the cloudy haze it also placed in my brain. It was a welcome reprieve at first, because I was finally able to relax and sleep. 2 nights. 2 nights are what I was given. Then the nightmare returned, and within the cloud of medication, it was far more vivid. The humid air was thick enough to taste. I could smell the flowers and grass. The warm breeze on my face would have been nice if I did not already know what would come next. The fear it incited was unlike anything I have ever known. Even as a child, I never lost control of my bladder. But that first week, the orderly had to replace my sheets almost every night. I could see that drooling face every time I closed my eyes. I could feel those dirty hands on my body in every quiet moment when my mind would not stay silent.
Rickets, Rickets, Rickets.
It repeated in my head, louder and louder. Even the day I was discharged from the hospital, I could not even focus on the information the nurse was trying to give me. But I was glad to have another voice in the room. I had to lie to the staff about having someone to pick me up. I was placed in a wheelchair and guided out the front door. I thanked them and assured them someone was on the way. I pulled out my now cracked cell phone and scrolled down to find my parents' number. My thumb hovered over the call button for what seemed like forever before I shoved my phone back into my pocket. I knew they would not trust me, and more importantly, could never believe what I was experiencing. I could barely believe it myself, and it was happening to me. Part of my conditions of probation required me to attend Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. The local meeting was held in a building a couple of miles away, so I just started walking. It would be hours before the meeting started, but I had little else to do. I arrived an hour early and there happened to be picnic tables outside, so I took a seat. I had always thought Alcoholics Anonymous meetings were held in churches and the like, but the place seemed to be some sort of municipal building. A few people walked by and the road was not far from the structure, so it was not what I would consider quiet. The problem I faced was the tables were positioned right under a large tree. Normally, this would mean a nice shady spot to rest. For me, it was a reminder. Every shuffling of the leaves overhead was like a warning signal in my head. Rickets. I kept peering over my shoulder at the base of the tree, and something in me expected a disturbing creature to peer around the trunk. I was preoccupied with the whispers and imagining the horrors that could occur when a heavy hand clapped down on my shoulder. I would be lying if I said I did not completely jump out of my ripped jeans, but relief washed over me as a large bearded man began to apologize profusely for scaring me. My nerves were on edge anyway, but as soon as I reached a moderate level of calm, I was able to hear his apology. I tried to assure him that I was fine, and I had just been lost in thought. He chuckled a bit and asked if I was here for the meeting. I reluctantly confirmed, and he smiled before inviting me to come on in before pulling out a set of keys and opening a door on the side of the building. Earl, not his real name by the way, would make you think lumberjack or trucker. He was 6 foot, probably 250 pounds, wore a plaid shirt and boots that made you think blue collar. I am not the smallest guy around, but I would not want to get into a bar fight with Earl. That being said, he was a teddy bear. He had an infectious laugh, was kind, and was able to calm my unease about the situation within minutes. To this day, I appreciate Earl, even if he does not completely believe my story. He asked me if I would not mind making the coffee while pointing to the station where the supplies rested. I nodded and headed over while he began pulling books out of a cabinet. A few others filtered in of various looks and backgrounds as Earl handed out books and a sheet of paper. As I finished preparing the coffee and took a cup for myself, I found myself taking note of the fact that this group of people just did not fit together. As I came to learn, those rooms are where the differences fall away. You learn how alike we all are, in the ways that truly matter. The meeting started with people reading from the sheet of paper, affirming their beliefs. Then they opened what they called the Big Book and read passages that surprisingly touched places I had experienced over and over again. Then each of them took turns sharing things that had happened to them that day and discussing how everyone felt about it. Stories and advice circled the table. I knew these stories. These were my stories, but told by other people. Eventually, the moment I had been dreading arrived. Earl asked if I would like to share, and everyone turned their eyes to me. I was unsure, and when I started my voice cracked, but I was able to state my name and that I was an alcoholic. Soon, the details of the last 10 years fell out of me like a faucet, and before I knew it, I was in tears discussing the crash. No one was hurtful, gave false pity, or laughed at me. I stopped talking, and I received applause, and my tears choked in my throat as it turned into a laugh. I thanked them for their support before Earl asked if there was anything else I felt I needed to share now that I knew I was safe to do so. I shook my head at first, but then just remarked on how I wished the nightmares would stop. Some people understood, some reassured me, and others had questions, but I was not ready to drop the bomb of what I had been experiencing. I did not even want to share the details of the dream itself. It sounded crazy to me, and I knew it would to anyone else. Someone handed me a tissue, and as I blew my nose, I cursed under my breath. Fucking Rickets. The scrawny old man to my left shifted his eyes to me and asked me to repeat myself. I shook my head and told him it was nothing. After the meeting, I helped clean up as everyone talked. Earl thanked me for the assistance and walked with me out the door. He thanked me for coming and told me he hoped I would come back again. I went to shake his hand, and without warning, he pulled me in for a hug. It was uncomfortable at first, but I realized it was the first hug I had received since I was maybe 12 or 13. He patted me on the back and just said,
"It's okay, brother."
I honestly did not know what to say. For the first time in a long time, I thought I just might be. Then Earl made his way to his lifted Ford F-150 and drove away. The fact that I still had nowhere to stay for the night had not sunk in yet. Then the old man from before lit a cigarette and drew my attention to the tree again. He was leaning against it in the dark and waiting on me.
"So, Rickets?"
he said as he began his approach. The words sent a chill down my spine as my eyes focused on the dim light under the tree. He was probably my height, but he was slightly hunched over to seem shorter. The hair that draped in a horseshoe around a patch of bald was turning white. His face was wrinkled and worn from his years. I never asked, but I would have guessed he was in his late 60s, early 70s. The shirt he wore had originally been white, but was so stained, it was more of a tan hue, and his jeans showed evidence of him being a farmhand. He took a long drag as I weighed his question and scanned the area to see if anyone else was listening. I laughed nervously as he offered me a cigarette. I took his gift and borrowed his lighter. Through my puff of smoke, I answered, "Yeah, Rickets." So I started giving the real story behind my crash and the nightmares I've been having. Surprisingly, the old man did not even blink. In my mind, he either thought I was completely crazy and was just enjoying the story, or he had heard this all before. At the time, I did not know which of those two would be worse. I shuffled back and forth while taking rapid drags from the cigarette. The entire time I tried to fight my way through the tale. I just kept repeating the mantra in my head, "Don't lose your shit." The old man had already finished his smoke, crushing it under his boot. Then I did the same as I finished recounting all the events that led me to this point. And without skipping a beat, he replied,
Damn.
I sighed. Yeah. He looked around and noticed that his truck was the only one left in the parking lot, and asked if I had somewhere to go. I knew it would be hard to come up with a lie he would believe. He honestly had a no bullshit air about him. So instead of trying, I just told him the truth. He pointed to the truck and told me to come along. A normal person would refuse. A person who had not been through everything I had been through would have said no. I had no options. So after a few minutes, I was riding shotgun with a man I had just met a couple hours prior and headed to a location unknown. Hale, not his real name either, assured me that he lived in a single wide trailer right outside the city limits. And though he did not have a spare bedroom, I could use his couch as long as I needed. The only caveat, he did not like liars or thieves. So I promised I would be honest, and that my days of taking things that did not belong to me were behind me. At the time, even I believed that myself. I just had no idea what awaited me in the weeks to come. No one could have. Hal was right. He had a couch and not a lot else, as far as material things. He was a simple man and did not require much. Cabinets with no doors were stocked to the brim with canned goods. He had an affinity for Coca-Cola. I counted at least 3 24-count cases of soda as I peered into the kitchen. There was a TV, a side table with a lamp, a couch, and a coffee table with an overflowing ashtray on it. The news blared as he turned on the screen. He quickly changed the channel to show about fishing.
Hate the news. Always so negative.
He scoffed. I plopped down on one end of the couch, and he took the other. I was sure he would start questioning me as soon as it got quiet, but he could tell I wasn't ready for that. We watched TV quietly, smoked a few cigarettes, and he even offered me a ham sandwich at one point. We ate in silence. Eventually, I fell asleep sitting on my side of the couch. Hal turned off the television before heading to bed. I slept, for a time, in peace. Then, the nightmares began. I hadn't taken my medication for the day, but I was able to shake myself awake for the first time since the horrors began. Well, my friends, we've reached the end of tonight's chilling tale, Rickets, Part 2, by the talented Locked 334. I hope you've enjoyed our descent into darkness, and that you'll carry a piece of the Fear File Chronicles with you as you drift into uneasy dreams. If our story left you shivering and shaking, don't forget to like this video, share it with others who crave a good scare, and subscribe to the Fear File Chronicles for more haunting horrors. Remember to hit the bell notification, so you're always among the first to know when a new nightmare awaits. As always, we appreciate your support and would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Sharing your fears and frights with us truly means a lot, so don't be shy to engage with our sinister community. Until next time, remember to embrace the darkness, for it is within the shadows that our most terrifying stories are born. Good night and stay scared.